Unlock the high returns of the expanding venture capital world right here on the Emerging Managers Podcast.
Hey, Scott. So we've got a second Keshia.
I know. It's really interesting how we got a second.
We don't have
Keshia.
a ton of women on the show, and we have two Keshias. I love it that's what happened this week. So this week we have Keshia Theobald-van Gent, and she has such an interesting background. We'll talk about that in a minute. But where did you meet her?
Well, I met her through one of our portfolio companies, reached out to them. And because they have such a really interesting model that they really test drive the consumer response prior to making an investment. And so one of our companies, I started to go through that program. I got introduced to them via that. And they have a really great thesis in how they help grow companies and build brands and invest in them. And Keshia herself has, a pretty interesting backstory.
Yeah, she certainly does. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So she's a partner at BDev Ventures. She leads the sourcing and portfolio operations, managing both the strategic and operational aspects of the fund. She previously founded and directed Dialogue to Learn, forging tech partnerships to advance literacy, and led the U.S. programs at a German accelerator specializing in global startup expansion and cross-border growth. So we're talking really international big picture type investment going on here. She holds a master's from the University of Groningen, and she's a frequent speaker and nonprofit board member.
And she started her background in Laos, of all places. So, the reality is she comes in with a really interesting international perspective, an operator perspective, and she's taking all those past experiences, to apply them for companies today.
Yeah, well, let's hear from Keshia Theobald-van Gent and all about BDev Ventures.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Scott Kelly, the founder and CEO of Black Dog Venture Partners, and your host for the Emerging Managers Podcast. And I'm really excited and want to congratulate Keshia becoming a new partner at BDev Ventures. Keshia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Scott. Genuinely super excited to be here.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Keshia, before we get into BDev, give us a little background about yourself, what you did prior, and how you got into the industry.
You know what? I think like most people in venture, I did not have a very straightforward path here. That's not an uncommon story in our industry, but I grew up between Kentucky and Indiana. And did my undergrad in Kentucky. I'll be honest, I don't know if I knew what a startup was until maybe college. It was a while, right? And I actually went to law school. So business really wasn't on my radar at all. Ended up having an opportunity to go work and live in Laos in Southeast Asia for about a year and a half. On my way over, this is a very personal part of my story, but on my way over, met this fabulous Dutch guy. Ended up spending about a year and a half with him in Laos, and then followed him back to the Netherlands. We've now been married 12 years, so it worked out. It was good, but a wild path, right? Totally unexpected. Went back to school, studied business, as well as have a master's in conflict, religion, and globalization. So again, not a direct path. Really saw myself working for the government or doing something very differently. But then at the time, my husband got a great opportunity to come work here in Silicon Valley. And that was about 10 years ago. And I showed up not knowing a ton, had been working in the education space. That's why I was in Laos and in international education. And I was really excited about some of the opportunities here. I got connected. I did a few different things, but within about a year of being here, I got connected to a principal in East Palo Alto, which was a rougher neighborhood here in the Bay Area. And he was doing his postdoc at Stanford, and he and I launched an ed tech company. It is very difficult to make money in education. And we had a product that was for low income elementary schools with literacy. So we did try the traditional startup route. We actually ended up rolling all of that technology into a 501c3 because our customers were these schools and they loved it. Through that process, built a ton of partnerships with local, big tech. And kind of at the end of that, once that had a nice bow on it, I was a board member there at the nonprofit and I needed a job. And so I started calling. Yeah, that was the truth of it. So I started calling, my board members, people I had worked with, investors that I had worked with, and I got introduced to the team at GSV Capital. And I, was like, hey, I've been an EdTech founder. Like, you guys invest in EdTech. You're the biggest name in EdTech. Are any of your portfolio companies hiring? And they actually, at the end of the day, offered me a job at GSV Labs, which was their early stage arm. So that was kind of how I got into venture. Had been a founder, understood the experience. And then I was at GSV Labs for a while. I ended up being there. I got promoted to their director of strategic partnerships. So spending a lot of time with large corporations, doing a lot of startup scouting, as well as like some internal like design thinking, internal innovation for large corporations. And actually our team is on a bunch of patents, which is quite fun. And then I got recruited to run a startup accelerator. So I did that for several years. German Accelerator is this really cool program where, and very well funded. They take high potential European startups, launch them into the US market. They started off running their Silicon Valley programs, ended up running all their US programs, and had a blast. Learned accelerators are an amazing place to learn because you're constantly interacting with amazing mentors and amazing founders, and you're kind of seeing in real time what's working and what's not working. And because I had my own company previously, I had a lot of context for that. Like I could really make that actionable for myself. I did that for over 3 years, loved it. But then I got an opportunity to join BDev. And at the time, so BDev's about 3.5, we've been actively investing for about 3.5 years now. And when I joined, they hired me to join the investment team and to lead as an investment manager, to lead a large group of associates. And then I very quickly didn't do that. I ended up building out our portfolio team, if you will. And we have a unique offering on that, kind of the platform side of the house. And I did that for about a year, and then came back over, kind of got things set up, handed it off, came back over to the investment team. Today I manage our investment team, all of our operations, and our product team. Internally here at the fund, and anything else that needs to get done, whatever. And I work with 3 other amazing partners. Colin Groves and I kind of lead the fund day to day, and it's been an amazing
awesome.
Right.
I love the non-traditional background. I spent about almost 20 years in Silicon Valley, and I was probably the more traditional, the B school, the internship, investment banking, and all that. But I love when I talk to folks like yourself in the business that have taken the non-traditional path, because you bring a different perspective, a real world and a worldly, perspective to that. So I appreciate the backgrounder. So BDev has a really interesting, thesis and how would they invest and what they do. So I'd love for you to share to our listeners today, talk about BDev Ventures and the thesis and how you invest and what you do.
Yeah, we are unique. So BDev, and actually I think one of the coolest things about BDev is our founder, one of our partners, Najat Marco, super successful founder, right? So he has a company called Buyers Dev. It's a LATAM tech unicorn. He's still the CEO over there, so he's not day to day. So he is, he's a founder. I'm a founder. Everyone at the leadership team has that experience. And this is the reason I joined. Nacho was the reason I joined. He really, I think, raising money in LATAM, 15 years ago when he started his company was really challenging. And something that you'll hear me say and other VCs say, sometimes quietly and behind closed doors, venture capital is really expensive capital. It's expensive capital. There are a lot cheaper alternatives out there. And so if you're a founder and you're raising VC money and you're taking on that VC business model, because we push founders to grow and grow fast because we need that within our model. If you're doing that, your investors need to be working for you. That was kind of the basis of BDev Ventures. And so Fund 1, we have 150 million AUM. And we provide, in addition to capital, we provide all of our portfolio companies with access to a suite of go-to-market tools. Right now, we have 2 primary tools. One is it's proprietary, right? We've built it in-house. These are all in-house. We're not selling them though, so it's not like they feel in-house, but they're effective. So one is a cold email outreach platform. We call it Win Different, and basically, we're not necessarily reinventing the wheel. We have a proprietary database of about 300 million leads. We have a unique way of validating that data, so we're really hitting real emails. But it's a cold email outreach campaign, right? It's fairly straightforward. It's highly automated, utilizing a lot of machine learning, which is what makes it so effective. With that platform alone, we make up somewhere between 6 and 65% of all new revenue for our portfolio companies.
Wow.
So it is meaningful, right? That is a meaningful addition to a company. The other tool we have, which we've just now, it's beta plus is the stage it's at. It is a warm intro tool. And so basically utilizing a lot of machine learning again, we've got some great technical talent here. What it does is it ingests founders' networks, and as well as maybe their C-suite, as well as all of course, our team's networks. And then the machine learning algorithm goes in and finds, we kind of score your relationships, like how actually well connected are you to these people, finds these, within your ICP, like, hey, you know this person fairly well, and they know this person fairly well. You should ask them for an introduction. And then we have a kind of community component to that, or we're building that part now, which is founders helping founders. So within our portfolio, I may not have the right connection for founder A, but he might. And so if founder B can help founder A, then maybe founder C can help founder B. So we're all kind of pooling our resources and growing together in that sense. Our goal with this, and to your point, what else makes us unique? We're not just throwing these tools at our companies, we're actually using them in diligence. So as a part of our diligence process, we run campaigns. Can we help you grow your business? Can we help you bring in new revenue, through new leads? How does the market respond, right? Do you understand your ICP? It's been a really wonderful tool for us. And we're pretty active investors. We had our biggest month last month. In June, we made 7 investments.
Congratulations. I love that concept, because the reality is, from a totally pragmatic standpoint, you actually get to gamify your potential upside by being active in the lead generation. So from a fund investor standpoint, it's great. But from an entrepreneur standpoint, it's fascinating that, because again, you and I have probably talked to a lot of technical founders that can get great technology, but don't know anything about marketing and sales. And the reality is, we can't get a return on our capital until you generate revenue. And if you're proactive in that's a great value, obviously for the fund, both pre and post investment, but it's a great opportunity for the entrepreneurs themselves.
That's the goal, right? And
yeah.
Right, like these things, most founders, if you have a strong founder market fit, you probably don't have a great background in sales and marketing.
Right.
If we're honest with ourselves, right?
No, you're absolutely right. So, congratulations on last month, and I'm going to lead to this question. Let's talk about some of the success stories, some of the companies where this model has worked gangbusters, and maybe some of the ones that are kind of on the horizon doing some great things.
Yeah, that is a great question. So I'm not going to cover all of our great companies. So,
sure.
So if somebody listens to this and I didn't mention them, I apologize.
We'll just start with saying they're all great.
They're all fabulous. I think one company I'm really excited about right now is Pinata. So Pinata works with renters and property managers to increase and reward renters for paying their rent on time, right? So there are a few competitors in the market doing this, although Pinata is skyrocketing very, very, very quickly. They basically, if you're a renter, and if someone's listening and you're a renter, go sign up for this. It's free. It's amazing. But basically, if you're renting today, you're probably not getting any of that credit toward your credit score, which is too bad, because if you do want to transition one day to a house, you're going to need that credit score. So they help support with that. And then they also give you lots of little perks along the way. So you pay your rent on time, you might get a little, gift card to Starbucks or other local businesses, which is pretty cool. They just raised their Series B, and could not be happier. We had the opportunity so we invested in them pretty early on. We're doing follow-on investing. The team is amazing. They have two amazing women co-founders, which I'm personally very proud of. As you probably know, about 2% of funded founders in the United States are women, and to be able to partner with them is amazing.
Agreed. And I actually, it's interesting you say that, because we host pitch events, from time to time. We just did one recently, promoting women entrepreneurs to women investors. And so it is definitely a market that's severely underserved. So outside of Pinata, what other things are out there? What are some of the trends and some of the earlier stuff that you think are going to be the next home runs for you guys?
I think one thing we're looking at right now is, I think there's a lot of opportunity. Everyone's looking at AI, right? If you're a startup and you don't have AI somewhere in your plan, why? You need to have a very good reason for that, right?
Right.
But I think for us specifically, we do a few what I would call like AI infra, kind of within that category. Personally, AI is a portfolio company of ours that we absolutely love. They're definitely in that space. But for the most part, our model works really well at that application layer, right? Where, and I actually would like to make the point that we're going back very much so to business fundamentals of, right? Because, hey, it's really hard to build a moat today. Technology is moving very fast, and not differentiate your product. That's probably unlikely. And maybe today, but probably not in 5 years. So how do you build a moat? I think one way you can do that is through your sales channels, right? If you have some right to win because you have some unique access to your customers, and then you can build on that. And then you build up, you have that unique data set, and you can have a very unique offering that really solves their problems. But at that, all of that, for me, goes back to the business fundamentals of, do you know your customers? Are you solving real world problems for your customers that they have today, right? Again, this is the application layer. But and are you doing that in a way that delights them? And are you the right person to do it? Do you have some unique access or some unique insight that you're going to be able to build that moat with? I think personally, one of the things that I'm really excited about is that in the past, enterprise grade products have not been accessible to the entire market, right? They're just they were too expensive. And I think today that is changing. So being able to offer those enterprise grade products to SMBs, we're B2B software investors. So I consumer side, although personally exciting because I like better tools for myself. Not something we're investing in, but I think is generally interesting.
Yeah, I'm so, you just made this comment. It's the second time I've heard it in my second interview in the last 2 days, the right to win, and, the other thing is obviously the will to win. So getting back to the founders, give me the attributes of the typical founder that you invest in and what makes you pick one founder or founder group over another.
Yeah, I'm going to answer your question, but first I'm going to say, venture capital is an interesting industry in that there is very little data, right? There's very little traction. There's we invest seed to Series B, and certainly by the time you get to Series B, that's changing. But at seed, it is difficult to pick a winner, right? And so oftentimes you're really anchoring on, is this the right person to take, to not just build, and I would say for me, not just build something that's valuable, but build something that's valuable, that's also a sustainable business. It's not as frothy as it once was. We're still in that space. So, that's a consideration today. And can you build that with intention? And I would actually add to that, can you build that in partnerships? Can you get other people excited about what you're building? And it doesn't matter if those people are your employees, your early customers, your investors, that you need to be someone who can convince others that you're the right. I think so. I'm always looking for some of those attributes. Or as founders themselves, I think the thing that we talk a lot about. So founder market fit is, are you the right person to do this? And that sort of speaks to, what's your background? If you're pitching me a company in the ed tech space, we don't really invest in ed tech, but let's say you're pitching me a company in the ed tech space, your background is all in corporate finance, you're probably not the, I'm going to have some questions for you. That doesn't quite match. So, does your background match? Do you have some unique access to this community? But I think importantly, I'm also looking for grit. I'm looking for grit. I'm looking for character. Do I trust you? Do I trust that you're going to tell me the truth? Do I trust that you're going to be a good partner as we continue to put together? And when times are really tough, are you going to stick with it? Because being a founder is hard.
It is absolutely. I've been a founder like yourself many times, and you have the days where you're on cloud nine and the days you want to curl up in a ball, and so you've got to be able to push through those tough days to get more of the good days. Absolutely.
Yes. So, yeah. It's okay to curl up in a ball, but you have to set a little timer, right?
Exactly.
12 minutes.
Right. Exactly. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, because obviously we've been talking about from a founder's perspective and somebody who may be interested in having you as an investment partner. Let's talk about who your co-investors are, who your LPs are, what are the makeup of them, and tell me a little bit about who those people are.
So we're minority investors. So I'll start with co-investors. We're minority investors. We prefer not to lead rounds. We don't want to be the largest check in a round. That being said, we are comfortable maybe through a safe in between price rounds, being the only investor. But because of that, we work really well with others. It's also what allows us to be a higher volume investor, right? So that's built certainly an important part of our model. So we just invested earlier this year, one of our first, an investment I'm really excited about. We invested in Brazil in a company called Pipo. I do not speak Portuguese, so Pipo Saúde, which translates to People Health, and an amazing company that is working with large enterprises to bring healthcare directly to their employees in a much more accessible way. And within the Brazilian context, it just makes a ton of sense. And that's an example of, we added a ton of value to the company. We were super excited about them. Thrive came in as the lead investor, and we were, couldn't be happier, right? To invest alongside other great funds. We have to date over 80 investments across 59 portfolio companies.
Okay.
And with that, we have a ton of co-investors. I would say most major funds, including some of the A16Z and Sequoia's search funds, right? Because we're earlier stage. As well as strategics. We actively cultivate a lot of relationships with CVCs. They offer unique opportunities to our founders, right? So a big part of my job, and probably more so Colin Grove's job, on another partner of the fund, is, as minority investors, whether it's an existing investment or an investment we're just excited about, going out and helping them secure those leads, helping them fill out their price rounds. And as a part of that, spend a lot of time with other investors.
Awesome. So let's talk. We talk about the past. We talk about the present. Let's talk a little about the future. I love to ask this question because it kind of opens up Pandora's box. So why BDev Ventures, and why now? Times
have changed. 20 years ago, there were less than 100 VC funds. I want to say the exact number is 68 or something. Today, there are thousands, over 3,000.
Yeah, 3,200 and counting.
Yeah. And I think in the past, it was a winning strategy could be to raise a certain amount of money and really go out and make very strategic bets on the companies that you think are really special. We've not seen those funds have great returns in the last few. And part of the reason for that is twofold. One, venture capital is a lot more competitive today. You have to fight to get into rounds. Two, there is a lack of liquidity for LPs, which means there's a lot of money going into these mega funds, and valuations, their investments, their strategy is very different than many of us. And three, I think to be able to win, to be able to pick winners, you need to invest more and you need to add value. So we're very much so putting our thumb on the scale and saying, like, hey, we think you're a winner already. Also, here's a ton of resources. A lot of funds, especially the big funds, right? They provide a ton of resources to their portfolio companies. To be frank, we're not that big yet. I don't have 7 billion AUM. It's going to be a few years. but I think, so I can't hire a 200-person platforms team. That's just not realistic. But what we can do is very strategically and targeted come in and systematically affect the bottom line of the companies that we work with through getting leads and generating new revenue. And I think for us, that is a game changer. It means that the companies we partner with love us. Talking to them very regularly. We're getting very regular updates. And so we're able to jump in a lot earlier and support, but also being honest with our founders about what we can provide them and what we can't.
Right. And that's really important because obviously all this value add just improves alpha, which is a win for all involved. So any last things you want to share, ideas, thoughts, pieces of advice, anything you want to share with the listeners today?
Yeah. So today we are a single LP fund.
Okay.
We have an evergreen commitment. So we had an initial commitment of 150 million. Now we have an evergreen commitment. That will probably not be true in the future. And not the evergreen, that's not going to go away, but the single LP, I think we are seeing some really promising returns on this unique model. It is a unique model. And we clearly are getting access to deals that maybe a fund of our size wouldn't otherwise. And so as some of those companies mature, these big pro rata rights within some of those later stage rounds, really excited to take advantage of that and always looking for new partners, always looking for co-investors. And founders, we are one of the more active funds in Silicon Valley. We invest across the United States and LATAM. If you are a B2B SaaS company and you're kind of in that late seed through Series B, please, I am the only Keshia Theobald-van Gent on LinkedIn. Like,
well, they can find you definitely on LinkedIn. Where can they learn more about BDev Ventures?
So BDevVentures.com, right? You can see us there. Our investment criteria is pretty straightforward. You can also email us at info@bdevventures.com. We respond to every founder.
Fantastic. Well, Keshia, thanks for being on the show today. And for everyone listening, make sure you check out BDev Ventures and check out what Keshia's doing on LinkedIn. And I always, if you like, comment, and share, we really appreciate that. And again, Keshia, thanks for being on the show today.
God, thank you so much. You are fabulous and doing great things for founders. Appreciate you.
Just so fascinated about her broad experience, but also just about how all these things intertwine. And I think that's a kind of theme going on with all of the interviews that we've done here, is that they have this, they take an experience here and experience there, and then they apply it to this investment. And then that's just, that really is magnified here because it's so broad across the world.
Well, even BDev Ventures didn't start out as a traditional venture capital firm. They had a platform to send out literally millions of emails and outreach, for companies. And they became so successful in that, they set up a fund using the money they've accumulated over that time to invest, but also applying the technology that they have to, one, make sure the investment has product market fit before the investment, and then it's successful post-investment.
Yeah. And, I think we are all getting a lot of this email outreach. If you're a startup, if you're a CEO, if you're a founder, we are all on we're all on some list somewhere, right. Or in one of those LinkedIn programs, because I probably get like 3 or 4 a day asking me if I want to sell my company, if I want leads for my company, right?
Yeah. Well, since we've been on this podcast, I've already gotten 4 phone calls that I know there are companies saying I've qualified for $1 million in funding. This constant outreach is ever present in our lives.
Yeah. So, I'm very curious. They did obviously really well because they said 65% of new revenue was coming from this cold email outreach. And that's crazy numbers.
Well, and I think the reality is what people have to understand listening is that, marketing is a process. Yeah. There's an old adage that if you get to if you get to 6 closes, your close rate goes up geometrically. But the vast majority of entrepreneurs don't get past the second close. And so by automating this process, it's basically a whittling down. it's kind of like, we both have kids. I remember, my boys, if they wanted something for Christmas, they would ask me every day starting Halloween. And that repetition is ingrained, in your psyche. And so I think, the reality is they do it in such a way that is strategic. It's well thought out. But like you mentioned, they have, great success with it.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't see those numbers from other. You have to send out a lot of emails to get to a 65% success rate. So,
right.
that's a lot of emails. So,
exactly,
I haven't seen those numbers from any of my clients, and I've got over 1,000. So,
right.
That is an astounding number in this day and age, and so good for them to be able to.
Do that. And honestly, they're able to take that technology and apply it to the companies that they invest in. And because the reality is, if you can take an investment, obviously capital is important, but execution is mandatory. And they are really helping these companies execute better using this tried and true technology and this marketing tech that they have. So it's, the numbers have not lied so far.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is I hadn't really heard the term. We always talk about product market fit, but she talked about founder market fit. And I love that, because that is actually really what we see more of, but she just kind of identified it succinctly that that's what they're really looking for, is that you have deep expertise in the area and deep expertise in what you're going to market with.
Yeah, the will to win and is an interesting theme that I've heard over the last couple of interviews I've done. And, Keshia was one of those. It's, founder market fit is important. You've got to have the founder that has the will to win and all the attributes to be successful, because being an entrepreneur and running a startup, as we both know, is not for the weak, and it's not for the timid, and it's not for those easily discouraged. It's really it takes a certain type of personality, and you can determine whether that's a good, bad, or a different personality to be successful.
Yeah. So BDev Ventures, Keshia Theobald-van Gent, she's looking for B2B SaaS companies in the late seed and Series B stage in the US and Latin America. Like, I just love, she's just like expanding, to reach out to her. So you can find links for all of that by going to emergingmanagerspodcast.com, going to the blog post for this episode, and you can connect up directly with her, so you don't have to remember it while you're listening, and hopefully at the gym, taking a walk, whatever you're doing. Hopefully you're not washing dishes, but that's why we keep it so convenient there. And if you are one of these emerging managers and feel like you should be on this show, don't forget to reach out to Scott over the website. There's a little form there. You can just fill it out and let us know that you think you belong here, and we'll be interviewing you next.
Awesome.
All right, Scott, we'll be back next week with yet another emerging manager.
Join Scott Kelly, Tracy Hazard, and their high-performing capital fund manager guests next week on the Emerging Managers Podcast. Don't miss our upcoming virtual and live VC Fast Pitch and podcast events. For more details, background on our guests, or an application to be our next guest, visit emergingmanagerspodcast.com. Don't miss out on shaping the future of venture capital and entrepreneurship with us by joining our robust community of innovators and investors today.